Hello, everybody. Happy Friday to all of you. Hope you're all well ahead of game week 11 in the Premier League. For the benefit of those listening to the audio, my name's James, and you're listening to my regular Ask James live stream on YouTube every Friday. I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. Before I get into those questions, we'll obviously be covering them over the next hour or so. We'll give you an update on all the team news from the 18 teams that are playing in the Premier League this weekend. Obviously, Aston Villa and Newcastle, which was scheduled for this evening, has been postponed. It means the FPL deadline is now 11 a.m. tomorrow morning. On that, as a note for tomorrow's deadline stream on YouTube, unfortunately, I've got a haircut appointment for Harry at 11 o'clock in the morning. And when I looked at the missus and said, any chance of changing that? I got the cold shoulder a little bit. So tomorrow's deadline stream will be 9:30 and will end at 10:30 a.m. on the dot. Just means you can finish the stream and pick your team with half hour till deadline. Mine is very much locked in, I would suggest. Team news. So the game week will begin with Burnley and Everton. Nick Pope is available for Burnley. Sean Dyche has said that he and Josh Brownhill are available. They've trained this week. Dale Stephens and Robbie Brady trained yesterday. Phil Barsley is still struggling with a rib issue, and Goodmanson is being managed carefully, but may be available. For Everton, quite straightforward from Carlo Ancelotti this afternoon. He said that Seamus Coleman and Luca Dean are obviously out. Everybody else is available. Suggested that the idea of playing with midfielders as wing-backs, i.e. Iwobi and Davis, who played that position against Leeds, they're likely to stick with that at the moment. For Manchester City, no major updates from Pep Guardiola other than the trivial shit, trying to motivate his players. Interpretate who you like. Who is he trying to motivate for what situation? Sergio Aguero is training, but according to Ben Dinnery, is not in contention for Manchester City this weekend. We presume that Gabriel Jesus will therefore play up front. For Fulham, Kenny Tete is still unavailable, but everybody else is fit for Fulham following the excellent win at Leicester on Monday night. For West Ham United, it's bad news from David Moyes on Mikel Antonio. Hamstring injury again, and David Moyes doesn't know how long he will be out for. Could be next week he returns, could be 2021. For Manchester United, Marcus Rashford joined in training today, but, quote, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says, not fully. The complaint is a shoulder injury. Luke Shaw remains out for the Red Devils. For Chelsea, good news from Frank Lampard for them. He says that everybody in the squad is fit and available for selection. For Leeds, Diego Llorente has now recovered from injury, but is unlikely to be match fit, therefore probably will not be risked for this particular game. Forshaw, Henderson, Hernandez and Shackleton all remain out. For West Bromwich Albion, Connor Townsend has been ruled out by Slaven Bilic for 4 to 6 weeks. He obviously stole the place. I say stole. He deserved it from Kieran Gibbs following Gibbs' idiotic red card at Goodison Park in game week 2. Gibbs is one of 2 players who's returned from COVID isolation. Jake Livermore is the other. I presume Gibbs will come straight back into the team at left wing back. Slaven Bilic also says the whole squad is now COVID free. For Crystal Palace, they also have 2 returnees from isolation. Wilfried Zaha is back following his isolation, and Luka Milivojevic is also back. He obviously served a 3-game suspension, then had COVID himself. He's also available for selection. Sheffield United and Leicester is 2:15 on Sunday. Obviously, Leicester travelling back now from their trip to Ukraine, where they were beaten last night, but have already qualified for the Europa League along with Tottenham and Arsenal. And Didi, Pereira and Siyunchu all played last night. Siyunchu overstretched his groin and needs to be assessed. Only played around about 15 minutes. I'd say he's unlikely for the weekend. I'd also feel it would be too soon for Pereira and then Didi to start a Premier League game. Timothy Castagne did not feature last night and is likely still injured. Wes Morgan, who also played last night, is a doubt. No new news from Sheffield United as yet from Chris Wilder, as far as I had on my timeline. Obviously, they had Kim Bryan played left wing back at West Brom at the weekend, made his debut. I know Ethan Ampadu was a doubt and Ender Stevens was quite close. I would expect at least one, if not both of them, to come back into the Blades team. Tottenham and Arsenal on Sunday in the big North London derby. Jose Mourinho believes Harry Kane will be fit. As I told my patrons this morning, I would suggest unless his wife is giving birth at 4:30 p.m. on Sunday, or unless he's had a leg removed, expect Harry Kane to play on Sunday. Sergio Reguilon and Carlos Vinicius are also being assessed. Eric Lamela is out. Toby Alderweireld could make a surprise return. And according to Matt Law at The Telegraph, Hugo Lloris is a doubt again, which, if he is, will immediately remove any confidence I have ahead of that game. It would be disastrous if Joe Hart played in goal. For Arsenal, Thomas Partey may return. David Luiz will be monitored. Interestingly, Alexander Lacazette impressed in a number 10 position for Arsenal last night, and I don't see any reason why he and Aubameyang wouldn't play together as a front two. Lacazette can then obviously drop into areas around about Højbjerg and Sissoko and disturb them with and without possession for Arsenal. So I think Lacazette may pick up that role on Sunday. For Liverpool, who played Wolves on Sunday evening, hopefully a long enough break for Jurgen Klopp this week. Alisson is out, according to Klopp. In his words, he said he'd never known a hamstring injury to be less than a week. So I presume he would be very doubtful for the game week 12 trip to Fulham as well. Game week 13 against Tottenham is probably more likely for a return for him. Kelleher likely to deputise, performed very well against Ajax in midweek. Andrew Robertson took a heavy knock to the ankle in that game. Jordan Henderson a knock to the back. Personally, I expect both to be available. I haven't had official word on James Milner, but I presume that he is out following his hamstring strain picked up in the draw at Brighton. Trent Alexander-Arnold and Naby Keita will, according to Jurgen Klopp, do their first steps in training today. Suggested that if they come through that and tomorrow unscathed, they may be in the 18. Whether they would start is a different matter. For Wolves, Raul Jimenez should be able to leave hospital early next week following his horrific collision with David Luiz at the Emirates on Sunday. Wish him a very speedy recovery. Too early, according to Nuno Santos, to put any time frame on how long he will be out. Roman Saiz is another one who is back from isolation. Obviously unknown at the moment whether Wolves will stick to this reverted formation with four at the back, or does Jimenez injury and the fact they're playing Liverpool away mean they go back to a back five? To be confirmed. The game weekends with Brighton and Southampton on Monday evening. Adam Lallana is out for a couple of weeks. Neil Maupay is being assessed. If he trains tomorrow, may play, according to Graham Potter. Alexis McAllister and Davy Propper have been pictured in training, but nobody at their press conference asked Potter on their fitness. And for Southampton, Danny Ings trained yesterday first time and looked good, according to Ralph Hasenhüttl. But as that's the first training session in over a month, I'd find it unlikely that he will start on Monday evening, but probably a good shout to be on the bench. And Nathan Redmond has trained too, but no word on his condition from Hasenhüttl, because again, nobody at Southampton press conference asked on Nathan Redmond's fitness. For the guys doing the press conference at Brighton Southampton, ask some questions that are a little bit helpful. Be much appreciated. Tariq Lamptey obviously be back from suspension for Brighton as well this week. That is your confirmed team news as of just gone 3 p.m. UK time on Friday ahead of game week 11. Right, let's get into the questions. Edwin Granzin says hello. Matthew Halliday says, will Monday's People's Poll Pod be on Suj and his family's experience at the West Ham game this weekend? Feel very pleased for them all. Yeah, if you haven't heard the news, Suj and his two boys have got tickets for West Ham and Manchester United tomorrow. Absolutely delighted for him. I've been unsuccessful, inevitably. Feels like everybody on my timeline's got a ticket for the weekend, actually, except for me. I think that's just how it feels sometimes. A little bit like when you have a bad FPL game week, it feels like everybody else is having a good one, or vice versa. It won't be Monday because the plan at the moment, Matthew, is to do the main podcast on Monday, and we'll review the 8 games of Sunday and Monday. We're not going to have a lot of ownership between Brighton and Southampton. I don't think too many of the community are. So I'd rather get the podcast out on Monday, actually, this week. Skip Brighton, Southampton. We may cover it a little bit Tuesday. The intention would be to do People's Poll on Tuesday this week. I prefer to do the main podcast on a Monday, so you've got the whole week to obviously take it in whenever you want. When it's 2 games, I feel like, okay, yeah, let's wait till the Tuesday. When it's just 1 game and it's not high profile, we'll genuinely do it on the Monday. So I think this week we'll do main podcast Monday. Tuesday we'll probably do People's Poll. Yeah, possibly. I don't know if we can make a whole podcast out of it, Matthew. We certainly covered off how Suj feels about it on our Patreon podcast that just released about an hour and a half ago for our patrons. We spoke about it was only when he knew he got the ticket he realised how much he'd missed it. Really nice things about the fact he only normally gets to take one of his kids. This time he can take both. It's a brilliant little thing. The kids feel like they're really lucky because they're 2 of 2,000 who are going to go to a game, right? 10,000 people are going to Premier League games this weekend. So really nice, really pleased for him. We'll certainly give that some thought, Matthew. I think Suj said he's intended to use the fleet functionality for quite a bit of the stuff tomorrow. So if you want to keep an eye on what Suj is doing, obviously give him a follow at Suj and Shah on Twitter. And I think he's going to update a lot of things on fleet. And I told him, fuck the fleet stuff, because nobody wants any of that shit on Twitter anyway. But we'll see what he does. Haiku Alzari said, should I transfer in Harry Kane or Son from game week 14 in my team? Kane always scores versus Leicester. Do you know what, my friend? That's 3 game weeks away. And I don't really think we should be thinking that too far ahead at the moment. I mean, for me personally, I'm looking to wildcard in game week 16. So I'm only looking at a block of 5 game weeks. Nobody should be looking at a block of more than 7 at the moment, because we have no idea what's going to happen with the game week 18 fixtures, where we still presume that 5 of those fixtures will be moved into game week 19. There's very little point in looking any further than game week 17 at the furthest. Kane has a great record against Leicester. He also has a great record against Arsenal. If he scores on a Sunday, he'll become the highest scorer in North London derby history in competitive matches, which is some achievement, actually. Harry Kane, consistent machine, any game, any time. Ask me again before game week 14, Haiku. FBL Kaka says, afternoon, James. Do you think Richarlison and Rashford to Jesus and Ziyech is worth it for a -4? I'm getting a bit sick of Rashford and his mystery flags, and I already own James Rodriguez. It's reasonable. The problem is, and this is another one we discussed on the Patreon pod earlier today, about because we're looking to get Jesus into our differential team and stick the armband on him this weekend. And the thing is, it's like next week Jesus might be a big problem. You go, Man United away, I don't want that. And if he plays against Man United, his West Brom afterwards a really good fixture for Aguero to come in. So you're going from one player with real doubts to another player with real doubts. The immediate return of what Jesus might do tomorrow is great, but as seen last week, they got 5 against Burnley and Jesus only gets an assist. Is it worth it? I'm not convinced, to be honest. I think what I'd rather do with that, if you want to move that on, Richarlison and Rashford, I'd be keener to rather than go Jesus and Ziyech. Those are the 2 you want to go to. Yeah, Jesus and Ziyech. I'd be keener to go down to someone like Che Adams, and instead of going Ziyech, you can get a really powerful midfielder like a Sterling, De Bruyne, Mo Salah. I think I'd be more inclined to want to do that kind of thing. FPL Kaka. For this week, it looks great. Further ahead, Jesus is probably going to be a headache for you, more than the midfield guys, I feel, because you never feel like Jesus like he's going to explode like say Mahrez did last week. We knew this with Mahrez last year, that when he plays these games, there's every chance he can go off. NUFC Ahmed said, hi, James. Where would win in the league this season with Spurs ranking Jose's accomplishments to date? Will it be the most impressive title under his belt, more so than winning Champions League with Porto, etc.? The 2004 Champions League campaign was a really bizarre one. Like, actually, Chelsea themselves should have gone on and won the trophy that year. If it wasn't them, it should have been Deportivo. Both of them went out in the semi-finals when Real Madrid and Arsenal looked like the 2 hot teams going into the quarterfinals. They both went out in the quarterfinals. There were some big names went out in the group stage and stuff that year. So it became very wide open. Obviously, an incredible achievement for even in, it's 21st century. Incredible achievement to get a club like Porto to win the Champions League. I think probably his Inter Milan treble, I would have thought was probably the greatest achievement, I should think. They'd had years of being close, but always kind of been the shadow of AC for a very long time. If you think back to the great AC team, that was obviously in Champions League finals in 05 and 07, with Kaká and Seedorf and Gattuso. What a fucking midfield they had, right? Shevchenko up front. What a team. And obviously the defensive names with Maldini, etc. So I think the Inter Milan treble was probably his greatest achievement. Ask me at the end if it happens, and I'll probably say that it is. I still don't think it's possible. Jose himself, he described us as a pony in the race last week, and I didn't take that offensively. Actually, I think his analogy was quite nice in the fact that, we're not a big horse in the race. We're not quite ready yet. We look at things like if Joe Hart has to play again on Sunday. I'm not joking. If Joe Hart's in the team on Sunday, get down the bookies and stick some money on Arsenal. They'll turn us over. It's that big a loss for us. And we can't afford to, if we lose Kane or if we lose Son, we just don't have the depth. Like Liverpool have got an injury crisis at the moment, but they're getting on by, right? They're joint top of the league. They're getting on by. It's a massive difference. Spurs can't afford to be losing the big names for consistent periods of time. So, I mean, with that in mind, it would be an amazing achievement because of that. But then you've got the freakish of everything with COVID, lack of crowds, etc. Is it perfect storm? I talk about perfect storms for a lot of things. This might be it for Tottenham. Should it go on and happen? Nothing's changed my opinion. I was asked before the Manchester City game, how many points would it take for Tottenham to get in the next 3 games for me to believe that we were title challengers? The answer was 9. Well, we can't get to 9, so we're not title challengers as far as I'm concerned. We're in a race for top 4, probably with Manchester United, is the way it looks at the moment. Jovial said, I've already used my first wildcard. Tell me how to navigate blank game week 18 and double game week 19 without using my second wildcard. That would make a better people's poll, wouldn't it? The answer to that, Jovial, is I can't. I can't tell you how to navigate it till I tell you how that fixtures look. Now, it could be, for example, that the rearranged game week 1 games of Manchester City, Aston Villa, Burnley, Manchester United could go in to these weeks, or Villa and Newcastle, and therefore you might have certain teams like Villa, for example, who play in game week 18 and have a double in game week 19. And then, for example, they become that becomes very easy to manage. The nightmare scenario of having 10 teams play in 18 and then 10 teams in the other 10 teams in 19 have a double if that's your nightmare scenario. How do you manage it? The best way to manage it would probably be, and this is without knowing the fixtures, and that's what it's dependent on. But at the moment, the best way to manage it would be you probably do want to aim for the 19 bench boost. Therefore, you will be aiming for players who have the double in 19. When will we find out? I think before game week 14, we should know what it looks like. And I think that's worst case scenario, by the way. I think probably more likely before game week 13, I expect. Once we know, you can plan. You've got a lot of weeks to potentially look at, but I mean, you've got the Christmas rotation, all that. You don't really want to be playing for a bench boost through these fixtures. That's one of the key things for me. I mean, even for me, wildcard in game week 16, getting to 19 with a bench boost is going to be tough. Getting to their plan in transfers, going to be tough. And obviously the advice there would be free hit game week 18. If it ends up with a real split, like I said, to say Villa play 18 and then double 19 and say City have that as well and a few others, then, and United, I guess, would be the other one. Then what I would maybe look for is really attack it, manage 18, bench boost 19, and then try and get through to use the free hit then in game week 29. I think it's game week 29, which is when the FA Cup quarterfinals are. Obviously, you can have loads of blanks there as well. My plan on using free hit 18, bench boost 19 would mean currently that once I know what those blanks are, I target the blanks wildcard game week 30 for the final stretch with the second wildcard. That's the most likely plan for myself at the moment. I can't tell you the right or wrong way to do it in terms of even Ben Crellin won't be able to either to actually know exactly what's right there in terms of how to manage it till we know the fixtures. But at the moment, you're probably the best way of doing it will just be target 19 and manage 18 the best you can. That's probably going to be the best way you do it. Either free hit 18 or just suffer it for whatever it is. Edwin Guan says, which 2 of the 3 would you start? Foden, Soufal or Lamptey? Definitely start Foden. He'll be starting for me tomorrow. Then I'm looking to bin him next week. That's my plan at the moment. Soufal or Lamptey? Soufal obviously at home to Manchester United. Lamptey at home to Southampton. Close call, that one. I think the loss of Antonio would make me want to lean into probably Lamptey, but I wouldn't foresee a clean sheet for either, if I'm very honest. So a little bit more from Lamptey on the attacking aspect, I guess. Bloomer Caldera says, can Sheffield United avoid relegation despite just 1 point so far? I still believe they can survive your thoughts, James. Well, I've tipped them to win this weekend, actually. I was deeply unimpressed with Leicester on Monday night. I mean, we're getting to now or never time for Sheffield United, definitely. The fixture run actually up until as far as we should look, game week 17 is not bad. They've got fixtures with Brighton, Burnley, Palace in there. Their Christmas period is not too bad. They've got those sides, I think, all away. Or is it Brighton at home, Everton at home, Burnley, Crystal Palace away? I need to double check that bit. I'm sure it's Brighton, Everton, Burnley, Palace are the 4 fixtures. That's a decent run of fixtures, you know. it's not too bad. So even if they didn't get anything the next 3, I would still say they're not dead. But then over to Christmas, they've got to do amazing things. They actually, in 1990-91, they didn't win till their 16th game of the season and finished 13th, believe it or not. And they had quite a number of draws in there. So, but I mean, yeah, if you had 6 or 7 draws, they won about 7 or 8 points, I think, after 16 games. So we were in big trouble, right? They ended up finishing 13th. I think they would have finished for the second half of that season. It's a long time ago. Would have finished in the top 5 or 6, I think. But the longer it goes, that's the sort of form they have to start showing to stay up. So I think what will give them hope as well is the form of the other 3. But if you have weeks, keep having more weeks like West Brom and Fulham both winning like last week. It was disastrous for United to particularly lose to a direct rival like that. But yeah, no, they're not gone yet. They're not gone. On Clash of Correspondence yesterday, was speaking obviously like not all feels well at Palace. If they'd have beaten Burnley and West Brom, then Palace would be 4th at the moment. As it stands, if they lose again on Sunday, West Brom are only 3 points behind them. And then suddenly you can feel Palace getting dragged into it. Newcastle got a lot of points at the moment to feel that they're safe and good 3 fixtures coming up. But suddenly if they don't perform well against West Brom, Leeds, Fulham, suddenly say they only get 1 or 2 points from those 3, for example, miss the fixture this week. And then they've got a really tough run, Newcastle. You might feel like they could get dragged into it as well. So, no, I don't think it's over for the Blades yet. They've got a very good manager. They've got players there who certainly won't give up. Neil Thompson says, afternoon, James. Hope you're well. Thoughts on Ziyech? And should I transfer him out next week if he blanks versus Leeds? Looking at using funds in a double out with Vardy to maybe go Salah and James Ward-Prowse. Reasonable, although after Sheffield United, Ward-Prowse has Arsenal and Manchester City, so it's not brilliantly appealing. They also play Liverpool before game week 18 as well, so difficult run for JWP. Thing is with him, because it's obviously set pieces, I mean, you really don't judge him on the fixtures because he scored a free kick against Manchester United, right? Or he scored 2 free kicks away to Villa, just as easily blanking some of the easier fixtures. So the timing of getting him is not particularly critical. The thing is, Neil, at the moment, and particularly with the COVID situation, we've seen what's happened at Newcastle. If you haven't heard the news, Dundee United in Scotland have got 9 COVID cases. Scotland, it's not far away, right? These people are in bubbles and things are starting to go wrong. You're almost, I feel, making it week-to-week planning transfers at the moment, particularly because you can't see the longer term yet of what January looks like from the blank double perspective. I mean, every week for about 4 weeks, I was looking to get rid of Jimenez, and then something else happened, and it was like I couldn't get rid of him. So my best advice to you, Neil, is enjoy the football this weekend. Message me next week to see how we get on. Danny Burns says, hi, James. Trying to be more aggressive with transfers if needed. Currently pondering over -H. Listen to me. -8, which would remove Bruno, he says, with gritted teeth face. Heung-min Son, who should also have gritted teeth face. And Ryan Brewster for Kevin De Bruyne captain, Diogo Jota and Che Adams have the exact money in the bank. Thoughts and good luck. I don't hate it. And the simple fact on that is, Danny, that if Bruno blanks this weekend and Kevin De Bruyne gets you another sort of 20 points, then he's probably going to pay for it in itself. It's as simple as that. But that's what you need. Bruno's record away from home, he's massive. I'm probably going to captain Bruno myself this weekend. I definitely think Kevin De Bruyne is the best choice. I just can't get there with the goalkeeper issue, having to remove Jimenez. What I said, I keep walking into more and more problems, which is making the longer term planning really difficult. And I guess because technically I finish in game week 15 at the moment, it's difficult for me to look beyond that. Is it worth it for a -8? Potentially, yes. Obviously, De Bruyne and Fernandes play each other the following week. Son could be a fullback captain. That's the other thing you want to consider, Danny, if you take this route. Who's your potential game week 12 captain? Are you going to be able to find a way to get to Mo Salah if that's what you want to do for 12? Would you be happy with Jota as a fullback option, or Son or Kane away to Crystal Palace, for example? So I think that's got to be part of your consideration there, Danny. You'll need De Bruyne to go off. He's very capable of doing so. I don't mind it as a move. I don't mind it. But what I would say for that is I could go Fernandes to Bruyne for the -8 because I'm going to be leaving 2.2 million in the bank at the moment, and I'm not going to do it. So therefore, it leans me into saying no. It's probably one hit too many. Pushkar says, hi, James. The Son and Ziyech out for Jota and KDB captain for a hit. Sound right? sounds better. I think Jota's a great potential fallback option for game week 12, by the way, as a possible captaincy if you can't get up to Salah, for example. So it sounds reasonable. It's worth saying, do remember Heung-min Son's consistency, and that he's a brilliant price. I say this every week, but if FPL was pricing him up again, he wouldn't be the price that he is. What's your plan for going back if you want to go back? Are you losing severe value on him as sell-ins? Not an easy, straightforward question to ask. But as a straightforward -4 for this week, I don't hate it. I also think the game is particularly difficult for Chelsea this weekend. I think it's a nightmare fixture playing Leeds after having, let's say, routine games against Tottenham and Seville. Psychologically, think Leeds on paper, that's easier. Let me tell you that it won't be. Leeds will go there and throw shit at them, and it will be a real challenge. But wouldn't surprise me if Chelsea won very, very comfortably. It also wouldn't surprise me if Leeds went there and beat them. So looking at it purely on this week, Pushkar, I don't think it's that bad. I don't necessarily think it leaves you in a better position for next week, but I can't see your whole team, so it's difficult to answer. FPL Kaka says, do you think Bale will eventually become nailed up front for Spurs at some point this season? And when, if he does, will he improve Kane's output even further? In theory, yes. It should do. Absolutely should do. I mean, you're talking about better delivery into the box from the right-hand side, which whoever plays there at the moment, or let's say whoever is, I think Son will go back to the left against Arsenal. Whoever plays on the right at the moment, Lucas Bergwijn at the moment, is not really associated with getting in great crosses for Kane, for example. So it's all about looking for that run in behind it. It's obviously he's got that great relationship with Son now. That's eventually where we want to see it go with Bale. Bale at the moment would be behind Lucas and Bergwijn in the pecking order. Honestly, he is so far off. You can tell he's still got it. Again, it's another one I spoke about on our podcast for patrons earlier, that I feel like he's playing with some sort of fear at the moment. Perhaps a lack of confidence in his own ability for whatever reason. But it feels more like when he used to run at people and people were in fear of him, it's almost like he's now in fear of either his loss of ability, which psychological might be difficult, or his fear of picking up injuries, which I get. You don't want to be picking up injuries in Europa League games, and that's the majority of when he's playing. But like, for example, I'd be amazed if Bale started on Sunday. Palace the following week, which is 3 days before we play Liverpool, that might be the time where he gets another look in. He might get a shot at that. But then if he plays on the right, he's got to think about what he's going to do tracking PVA the other way. And that's the problem. Every week we seem to play someone who their left-hand side feels quite strong. It's been like that for nearly every game that we've had since he came in terms of like offensive left backs. And that doesn't particularly change in the upcoming games either. If you look further ahead, Leicester, if you're going to play Justin there, will get forward. Wolves, depends on the system at the moment. You probably wouldn't want to leave Neto one-on-one with Aurea. You definitely wouldn't want to leave him one-on-one against Doherty. Even Fulham, Robinson's the one from left back that will tend to push on from Fulham defensively. Leeds, it's well documented. So in terms of where Bale gets back in that team, I really don't know the answer. But it could be that it's being managed extremely well and he'll be brilliant for us in the running. And that's obviously what we're hoping at the moment. Honestly, at the moment on what I've seen so far, he's not worth buying next summer. It wouldn't be worth it, honestly, considering the wages and stuff that come with him. It wouldn't be worth it. But I know what his capability is, and I'm still very, very hopeful that will come soon for Gareth. Victor Sandberg says, afternoon, James. How are you today? Thoughts on replacing Rashford with Mahrez this game week, or keep him and allow myself to upgrade him to Salah next week? If I go Mahrez, I'd also take a hit for Jota. I'd prefer the entry point to Salah next week. You can't even be sure that Mahrez is going to play. I know everybody, Mahrez didn't play midweek. It would be the first time that Mahrez ain't played midweek and then not played the weekend. Second guess, Pep. I think De Bruyne's a little bit more obvious. Okay, there's no need to leave De Bruyne out. Another easy game in midweek that he doesn't need to play in. So De Bruyne, yeah, it's fine. It's obviously so critical to see. But there's nothing to say, is there? He doesn't play Torres on the right or Foden on the right. You've got 3 players who can all play that position on the right. There's no guarantee that Mahrez even plays. And Rashford, I can see, is obviously frustrating a lot of people at the moment. But I think your entry point to Salah next week would probably be better, particularly now. Salah's not going to go and play in the Champions League in midweek, so a full week's rest should do him the world of good. Pushka also says, do you think there are going to be more than usual number of -4, -8 takers this week, meaning we can afford to be more aggressive with hits? It's the flip of that is, Pushka, it's a good week not to take one, right? Just by not taking a hit, you'll climb in rank. So, yes, there will be a lot of hits flying about this week. It's the same as when you get a big name, couple of big name players suddenly go missing together through injury. So, yeah, it depends on your point of view. I could say, yeah, you might as well be aggressive. Loads of others are going to be. Or I could say, no, if you're in a good place, everyone else is going to take a hit. You're 4 points ahead of everybody else before you start. Depends on your opinion. Pure Soccer Crazy this afternoon, James, do you think Harry Kane will come out of his purple patch soon and start banging a few more goals in? That question doesn't make sense, mate, because a purple patch is when he is fucking banging. So the question doesn't make sense. Listen, Harry Kane, any place, anytime, don't doubt him. Alex Turner says, hi, James, hope all well. Bissouma v. Souček bench issue. Who would you start? Also, how do you see teams reacting who have some home fans back in? Do you think it influences the players at this level? Souček over Bissouma would be very straightforward for me. It's definitely Souček. The really interesting one that came out of the week was what happened at Charlton. And Jose Mourinho kind of touched on it a little bit in his press conference last night as well. Let me put it to you like this. Tottenham have 50,000 season ticket holders. Of the 50,000 season ticket holders, once you factor in the premium and all that, the amount who actually vocally really involved themselves in singing in the match is probably 6,000 to 7,000, I would say. 6,000 to 7,000 roughly are the guys who create a big noise, kind of southeast corner. I sit above them. It's that kind of corner in the end where the big noise comes from. Listen, if none of them have got a ticket, it'd be fucking quiet at Tottenham on Sunday, I'm telling you. You got 2,000 people in there who don't normally sing. They ain't going to sing on Sunday. You think, I don't know how to start songs and stuff. So it's important who those 2,000 are. And by other accounts, it sounds like that's kind of what happened with Charlton, where Lee Bowyer, who's Charlton manager, was very critical of the fact it wasn't very loud. But you need to have 2,000 people in there who are going to be vocal. Otherwise, it's not going to make a difference. In an odd way, it might even be worse and less beneficial because for the players, might be thinking, it was 2,000 back here. Why aren't they singing? What are we doing? We're doing something wrong. The fact is, obviously, there are thousands of people every week who go to Tottenham and don't say a word during the game. They don't get involved in the singing or anything. So just because the noise is not there, and they're not now going to start the noise themselves. So listen, we don't know who the 2,000 are, right? But you want the 2,000 singers. Suj and his two kids going to make loads of noise at West Ham United on Saturday? The honest answer is no. Probably not. Probably going to, Dad, shut up, Dad, shut up. So it really depends on if you're getting vocal people in there. I'll tell you now, if I had a ticket on Sunday, I'll make a difference. I mean that genuinely seriously. You would not be able to shut me up from start to finish. Even if we was getting well beat, I would not stop singing from start to finish. I probably wouldn't be able to do the podcast on Monday, particularly for Arsenal, because I know they need me. But I need 2,000 Spurs boys to go in there Sunday and give it everything. That's not going to be the case. I hope there's a group of 50 or 100 who just will not shut up through the game, and that'll be enough for the players to know, okay, right, the support's there. And if they just keep going, the 50 to 100 or so, maybe some of the others will feel they can join in. But it's really, there's no way of knowing if there's any advantage on this or not. Honestly, it could be worse. It could feel worse for the players. Toby Alexander Hughes says, afternoon, James, in your opinion, would you switch out Foden to Mahrez for -4? I've already bought Jota in for James. Nah, I mean, I think I could probably make that move myself. I think I must be able to with 2.2 million in the bank. Admittedly, for me, it'd be part of a -8, but no, I don't think so. You're switching someone for a -4, and the guy you're selling might play instead of the guy you're buying. It's always a problem with City, isn't it? Daniel Lambert says, hi, James. Do you think there is a big risk captain in Sterling? And do you think Saiss, Grealish and Sterling for Jota, Reece James and Kevin De Bruyne is worth it? Well, I do like the 3 players that you're buying in. You just got to be conscious that particularly when you hit game week 13, you probably are going to want Jack Grealish back. So, but you can maneuver something to make that better. The fact that you're potentially selling 3 players there who might not play and playing 3 of the potential best assets in the game, it seems a very reasonable treble transfer to make from -4, Daniel. I can't argue that at all. On Sterling, if he plays, he's probably the best option this weekend. But it's guess away again. That's why De Bruyne's a safer choice, because he is the one I feel like you can put your hat on and say, yeah, KDB is going to start this weekend. That feels a lot safer. If I knew Sterling would play, I think he's probably the best shout, actually, against Fulham. If he played on the left up against Ola Aina, he'll have some joy, I would think. But I think that transfer's worth it, Daniel, by the sounds of it. Jovial says, FPL Cup starts in game week 17. How many rounds further have you qualified in FPL Cup in your previous seasons? Last year, I lost in first round. Last year, I didn't even qualify, I don't think, mate. I've never gone more than 3 or 4 games, I don't think. It's a waste of time, isn't it? It's impossible. And TJ said, hi, James. Hope you're well. What do you think of Chelsea v Leeds? Will it be open attacking game or tight, low-scoring game? Thank you and good luck on this game week. Can't wait for it. Other than Tottenham Arsenal, it's a game I'm looking forward to most this weekend. Could be a fascinating blend of styles. Again, was talking about it earlier today on the pod, saying that because of the energy that like Mount and Kante have got, they really could put up a great fight against Leeds if the game becomes spread. From what I saw from Chelsea at the weekend, they'll be quite conscious of what Leeds can throw. It's probably an easier game to play without fans than with fans. The fact it's 2,000 not going to make a difference to that mentality. It's easier than having 40,000 going, why are we sitting behind the ball at home to Leeds? But it's probably the best thing to do. Chelsea are players who can counter brilliantly. You might find it's a good day for Ziyech, for example. He can get space, switching balls quickly on the counter-attack to Werner. Could play really well for Chelsea this weekend. But I think it's a really tough game. I think as well as in your mind or in tactically, you can say, look, let's let Leeds have the ball a little bit. Let's sit off. Let's make sure they're not outnumbering us when they come forward. The psychological mentality is, I've just played Tottenham. This didn't work. And we've just battered Seville with a rotated team. It's Leeds, their promoted team. This should be easier. It's going to be a very difficult game. It's a fascinating one strategically. And strategically, I think we all fancy Bielsa to outdo Lampard, don't we? But Lampard generally, man for man, has the better players. Fascinating game. Really look forward to that one Saturday night. Could be anything. Honestly, Leeds could go there and win 3-0. I'm not joking. Chelsea could beat them 4 or 5. It could be anything in between. It should be a great game. And TJ, that's what we've just done. Haiku says, what odds will you give for Harry Kane to score 2 goals versus Arsenal? Come on, you Spurs. Harry Kane has scored twice against Arsenal. He's done it once before. I said on one of the pods last week. I think Chris Woods, thank you, corrected me. He did score twice against Arsenal in 2015. I don't know why I forgot it, because it's one of my favourite games ever, actually, when he headed the winner with about 4 minutes to go, sorry. So he's only scored twice against Arsenal once before. You wouldn't give it 10-1 odds, though. So, I mean, Harry Kane has scored twice on a Sunday. 7-2, 4-1. Something that sounds about right, probably. Benny Blanco says, hi, James. What do you think of Grealish? I thought you weren't asking me questions anymore, Benny. What do you think of Grealish to Jota? You're one of these guys with all these moves planned in your head. I will then do Vardy and Rodriguez to Salah captain and Bamford from -4. Gives me the Liverpool double up against Fulham in game week 12, then bring Grealish back for game week 13. Sounds like you've already got a plan, Benny. I don't think I need to comment, mate. Pushcar says, a mate of mine, casual FPL manager. Is this one where you're speaking about yourself, mate? With free Villa, chooses to play free hit. Simple. And we are here sitting all day overthinking transfers without considering free hit chip. I guess we were the amateurs all along. Not at all, mate, because he's really going to want that fucking free hit chip back in a couple of weeks. I don't agree with anybody free hitting this week. Honestly, I mean this. You got 6 players out this game week, and this would be for me, right? If I had 6 players out this game week, proper in a bad situation, I'd -8 or -12. I would not be using that free hit chip. What are you free hitting into? Like, you can get 3 Man City players against Fulham. Then what? I mean it, honestly. Why is this a good week to free hit, even if you've got all them problems? Okay, yep, 3 Man City players against Fulham. Now pick the rest of your free hit team. Chelsea playing Leeds, I just said, difficult. United away to West Ham. Tottenham against Arsenal's North London derby. Leicester away to Sheffield United. Where's this a good week to free hit? Everton at Burnley on a bad run. Where's this a good week to free hit? It's not. It's really not. Doesn't mean you can't do very well with it. Of course you can. I'm just telling you. And you listen, you'll be seeing people. I guarantee this will happen. I will see someone put on my Twitter timeline on Monday. It's got 80, 85 points with a free hit. What a weekend. And I'll see that same person in 5 weeks going, wish I had my fucking free hit chip. Auto Recluse said, ignoring the blank this week, which out of Watkins and Bamford would you go with until game week 16? Well, I can't tell you to buy Watkins now because that would be absolutely ridiculous. But if you're asking me which one scores more over the next 5 game weeks, it's probably Watkins. FPL Kaka says, if you had to choose one Chelsea midfielder for the Leeds game, would it be Havertz, Ziyech, or Pulisic? You mean as in for fantasy management purposes? Excuse me. Would have to be Ziyech because of what I just said in terms of his through balls on the counter attack. Have to be. I think that will be Chelsea's point of reference. Get it into Ziyech and go. John Lucas, what are the chances Giroud starts getting minutes in the English Premier League? Seems way more of a threat and more informed than Tammy at the moment. You'd have to ask Frank Lampard that question, mate. I can't really answer it. It's another one we did on one of the Patreon pods on Tuesday for Tottenham. I was telling the story of how I kind of felt emotionally during the Chelsea game, and I wasn't actually particularly worried that Chelsea win a score. I felt quite comfortable. And then Giroud come on, and all half I was thinking, don't bring Giroud on. He's going to score against us. Don't bring him on. Brought Giroud on. It's like, fucking hell, here we go. And 3 minutes later, he took Ziyech off. I pissed myself laughing. So he finally got the guy who can get on the end of crosses on the pitch, and he took the best crosser off. I couldn't believe my luck. And the only chance Giroud got was from Joe Rodon, obviously, when he tried to head it back to Lloris. Giroud should play, in my opinion. And there's no doubt about it, because they've got enough energy and pace around the rest of the team. Giroud should play. Bertinaldo, 10 afternoon, James. I'm lacking players after the Newcastle Villa postponement. So who do you feel is better as a one-off punt destined for future benching? Souček at home to Manchester United or Cole Walker-Peters away to Brighton. So my bench order is Souček first and Cole Walker-Peters second. I'm going to leave Grealish bust in the team. I'm funny, why are you doing that? Because, listen, you wouldn't want him sitting on the bench if you find out on Saturday night that the game's happening. Now, I believe the chance of that happening are less than 1%, but there is. You might as well just leave Grealish in the team just in case. So Souček, I assume, is going to play for me this week. Cole Walker-Peters is also likely to play, obviously, especially if Trent's back for Liverpool. Then I haven't got Nico Williams. The chance of playing both of them, but the priority is Souček, actually, for me. Lukman Rahman says, hi, James. Who is the best keeper to replace Martinez with up till game week 15 when I am going to wildcard? Thanks. So I've brought Sam Johnson in, but not instead of Martinez, to go with Martinez. And I've done that and I'm going to leave Martinez in the team this week for the same reason I'm leaving Grealish in the team. Good fixture this week against Palace, where he could immediately pay it back. The one thing I always say with these ones, what's the worst case scenario with Johnson at the weekend? Worst case scenario, Palace score a couple, he gets 1 point and 3 points worse off. Best case scenario, he gets another double pointer like he did against Sheffield United, and I'm 6 or 7 points up, or even better if there's a penalty save in there, for example. So that's the way I try and manage if I can. So I'm going to go for it. And the reason I go Johnston, I'll also play him away to Newcastle next week rather than Martinez away to Wolves. So I'm actually getting two quite nice fixtures out of Johnston. We had preference Johnston in that fixture as well. And the other risk, obviously, with Johnston is, of course, they are playing Newcastle themselves next week. What happens if Newcastle haven't recovered? You've got the same problem next week. So actually, Martinez to Johnston is not a clever idea. That's why I've paired the two up together. Best keeper up till game week 15 on the fixtures probably looks like McCarthy of Southampton. You've got Brighton, Sheffield United and Fulham are 3 of the 5 fixtures. Admittedly, 2 of them away. You've also got Arsenal away, but obviously the home form's quite patchy. It's Manchester City at home, which actually, if you remember last year, he had a weldy in. I'm pretty sure he ended up with a double pointer himself that night back in June or July. I mean, City should have won the game. He just couldn't score that night. So in spite of the fact they've got City in there, McCarthy, and it's obviously cheaper as well, so you can definitely make the transfer. He's probably the best shout. Oddly enough, Matt Ryan at Brighton, who I sold a few weeks back, is not the worst shout either. Southampton, Leicester, Fulham, Sheffield United, West Ham is not the worst run at all. I like the idea of if you can go up from the 4.0, just do that at the moment. And in which case, my decision has been Johnston. Obviously, part decided by Harris and Eno on yesterday's Clash of Correspondence. And if it goes wrong, I can always blame that little man. Lewis Coles, hi James, Bamford or Adams in for the next 5 game weeks? Well, I bought Che Adams last night, Lewis, so it's quite a straightforward one that for me. I've gone with Che, kind of what I just said about McCarthy's fixtures. But Bamford's fixtures don't particularly matter, by the way. It was just a case of what I wanted to do potentially next with that extra little bit of money was a clincher for me. Better immediate fixture as well when I haven't got the cover of players with obviously keeping the likes of Grealish this week. So I've gone for Che Adams, mate. Savanch says 3 ways I could do Son to KDB captain. For a -4, Ziyech to Jota or DCL to Bamford or Grealish to Jota. And then I get him back in game week 30 for Ziyech. Would lose 0.2 on Grealish. Own Grealish. Questions. Too much going on in that question, Savanch. Whichever one is your preference. I'll be honest, these really, really long-winded ones, I can barely be honest. You got to remember this goes out as an audio as well. I can barely be honest, bother to cover them, to be honest. It's just so long-winded. Which one do you want? Ziyech to Jota, DCL to Bamford, or Grealish to Jota? I would prefer to keep Grealish. You can get Jota at another time. So, or in fact, you can do it now, can't you? Ziyech to Jota. Fine. That'll do. Angus McPhail says, hi, James. Hope all's well. I'm looking at bringing one of Rafinha, Harrison, Neto, or Podence this week. Which one would you say is the best option? I want to check something on my phone, actually, because my answer would be Jack Harrison. And I'd recommend having a listen back to what I'd said on the podcast on Tuesday when I was reviewing the Everton Leeds game. But I'm sure, and I didn't see this reported from Bielsa's press conference, but I'm pretty sure someone said he had a flag against his name, which I'm about to check right now, if you bear with me for a moment. Nice to see while I'm looking it up that the Premier League have finally decided to back the Rainbow Laces campaign. Not what took them so long to make an announcement this year. Harrison does have a flag. Yeah, he has a knock, 75% chance of playing, which means you'd lean to Rafinha. I would go Neto over Podence, personally. But for Podence to its goal, great at Arsenal. Just a preference for Neto. It's got a little bit more explosion in him, I think, in my opinion. And just a little bit safer in terms of team selection as well. It depends which way Nuno goes next in terms of system and selection. But I think by default in Angus, probably Rafinha. If Harrison had been 100% at January, I would have said him. David Beaton, this afternoon, James. Hope you're well. Paul Tinkler, did you get a golden ticket for North London Derby, James? Unfortunately, I didn't, Paul. You probably heard me cover. I realise I'm well behind in questions. We'll wrap this up in just over 10 minutes or so, guys. I'm obviously not going to get through your questions, but I'm not going to rush through them either. Jamie Anthony says, hi, James. Loving the content. How do you feel about Mahrez for a 1-week punt? Absolutely reasonable for a 1-week punt, mate. Absolutely reasonable to hold for longer as well. Look, these City guys always say, going to be a headache. It is what it is. If Riyad Mahrez starts tomorrow, does he return against Fulham? I would think almost certainly, to be honest. It's the question of does he? We don't know. TJ Dara says, afternoon, James, not FPL related. I'd really appreciate a non-FPL related question, to be honest. With Donnie Vanderbick's problems at United, do you think he would have been a better signing for Arsenal, forming a partnership with Partey as 2 central midfielders? Possibly. It's on the spot a little bit because it's not something I ever heard that was linked or rumoured or anything. Partey will be a big boost to Arsenal if they can get him back on the pitch this weekend. And whenever he's back, they'll be better for it as well, because just haven't got enough movement in that engine room there with Xhaka and Ceballos. Oddly enough, it probably won't cause them too many problems on Sunday if that's the pairing. The two of them actually played quite well in the North London Derby in July, I thought. I actually thought Ceballos was the best player on the pitch in that game. So I don't think it would cause them too many problems in this particular game, but Partey will obviously be a plus for them as and when. I'm still not convinced on Donnie Vanderbeek's best position. Is the honest answer to the question, TJ. So I don't know if that would have fixed Arsenal's issues. The thing is, and I've been a little bit kind of critical of myself on this, because in the restart period, we were all kind of banging on about, once you get beyond United's first 11, it's shit. Then they buy a good player and we go, well, they're not using him. So they've made the squad better. And sometimes it takes players to adapt. Listen, that's a big adaptation from playing in the Eredivisie to playing for the biggest club in England, right? That's a big deal. So it's going to take some time. I'm not convinced that central midfield would be his best position, though, personally. Praise says, good day, James. I've got Grealish in my team. Do you think Ziyech and Cresswell to De Bruyne and Soufal is a good move? Need to free up some cash. I'll have to take a hit, but then I get to keep Grealish. Don't mind it, mate. Seems fairly reasonable. Obviously, look, Cresswell to Soufal is not a transfer that you would advise, but if it's the money that allows you to put the KDB armband on this week, I don't hate it. Kenneth Faz says, I want Jesus, but I don't want to get rid of Kane. Who is the better pick? I mean, look, Gabriel Jesus is the better pick this week. It's fairly obvious. To be honest, in theory, he's one of the best captaincy options. But who's the best pick, generally speaking? It's still Harry Kane. Any place, any time. Rohan S says, hi, James. For those of us without a wild card, how do you suggest we navigate game week 18, 19? I don't know if that was you already covered that question earlier, Rohan, but I did cover it a little while ago. Should you play Souček or Ayling? Well, Ayling's my last sub, and I've got Souček, so Souček, mate. Vish says, how much do you rate Wilson to return versus Fulham and West Brom in their upcoming games? Better than Watkins' fixtures? Is it? I mean, Watkins got Wolves and West Brom. Okay, yeah, in theory. But then Wilson's also got Leeds while Watkins got Burnley. So you can't miss that fixture out. And then if you want to go one more, Watkins has got Crystal Palace while Wilson's got Manchester City. So what's the full picture there? Depends what you're doing in terms of strategy. That's what I'm looking at because I'm wild carding after that. So, I mean, for me, to be honest, if Ollie Watkins had been, if Villa had the game this weekend, I would have bought Watkins rather than Adams this week. Obviously, they both don't play in the immediate in match week 12 if they're all fit. And if he hasn't got COVID, by the way, which you don't know, then Callum Wilson immediately in game week 12 is better. But then a few fixtures afterwards, Watkins is. So, no, it'd still be Watkins over Wilson for me. I saw enough, as we kind of mentioned Adam Hopcroft 8 days ago on COTC. I was concerned about Villa in terms of what will it look like for them without Barkley. What happens next in terms of change of shape with how they implement, most likely, as Adam had said, fit Hourihane into the team. And they were good. Listen, nobody's played better against West Ham this year than Villa did on Monday night. Villa should have won the game. Villa should have won the game. Like, none of that, Villa deserved the point. Villa should have won the game. Sudge himself called it robbery immediately after the game. So they're fine. So Watkins for me. Good morning to FPL Hitman. Sheila J. Raj, would you hold Son or DCL longer term? Preference Son, which, I mean, difficult because you're comparing players at 2 million apart in value, right? But I'd rather hold Son longer term, but then Son might be blocking you Bruno's or KDB's or Salah's. So it's not a straightforward one to answer, but I'd rather Son stayed in my team. Lewis Cole's Sky question this time. Zuma in for PVA and Diaz in for Barnes question. Thanks for the answers and content. No problem, Lewis. Probably not the right point, really, to be going Zuma to PVA now because you're not particularly getting a gain on the fixtures from Sky. This isn't going to make a lot of sense to the FPL listeners that bear with me. There isn't a good time, really, to make that move. In fact, it would probably be after Crystal Palace play Liverpool in match week 14 is then probably the right time to make that move. But you probably don't want to keep PVA for that long. I completely get that. I'd probably be looking at a chain move. So who else do you want to get rid of, Lewis? You want to get rid of and Diaz in for Barnes. Again, that's not easy one to get the gains on because Leicester are obviously constantly playing on the Sunday, generally speaking. You want to gain fixtures when you're making Sky transfers. I tell you what, Lewis, if you want, slide in my DMs on Twitter, send us a screenshot of your team because I don't think it's a simple one for me to answer without seeing the rest of your team. There might be different ways to maneuver that and make it a bit better, mate. Send us a DM. I'll have a look at that for you. Sam Thomas says, would you bring in Johnston for a keeper rotation with Martinez to spend the money replacing Martinez with Mendy? I think I've answered the question there, Sam. I've gone for Johnston. Personally, I like what it leaves me in the bank in terms of different things I might be able to do, which includes maybe hopping back into Trent next week if he's back fit. You know me, I can't help myself. As I said to the patrons earlier, I feel like as soon as I talk about Trent, I need the Darth Vader music now or something. Praise says, me again, what of a Gator and Ziyech to Johnson and De Bruyne move? Faults? I presume you want Gator to be your make weight so you can afford Ziyech to De Bruyne. You don't really want to be fucking about with the keepers, do you? And Gator's got West Brom this weekend. Although he's been shit, it doesn't really feel like the right week to move it on. Ziyech could do things against Leeds, as I've mentioned. Not keen, personally, but I get it. I'll just look at slightly different options if that's what you need to be affordable to get that armband on De Bruyne. Jed Reynolds says, hi, James. Quiz question for you. Okay. Man United withdrew from the 1999-2000 FA Cup, but which club replaced them despite losing their second round tie? Jed, I'm going to impress you. It was Darlington. They were the lucky losers and lost away to Aston Villa in the third round. I'm here all week. Jassim Jazz said, need to strengthen my bench because of Villa blank. Which one do you consider? Mitchell to Taylor, against Charlie Taylor, I'm guessing, or Gordon to El Neni and Greaser Burke. This is painful. Got 4 playing defender and 4 playing mid, including Grealish. You need to strengthen your bench. Mitchell to Taylor's fine. Actually, I've tipped Burnley potentially for a clean sheet this weekend as well, so that's probably going to lean me into that direction. But I sold Charlie Taylor last week because the way I'm looking at the fixtures, there was no warrant for me to have him. I've never would have picked him as a first choice in any of the fixtures before I wildcard. If you already used your wildcard, he's a better choice as well, by the way. And he's 4.4. Great value, by the way. I sold him just before the loss of price. So, Charlie Taylor, very reasonable, I think, just saying. I'll get through 3 more of these. Kartik Rousers, how about Kane to Bamford and Grealish to KDB to avoid playing 5 defenders by banking transfer? Nothing wrong with playing 5 defenders. I actually think there'd be quite a number of clean sheets knocking about this weekend, and from some teams you might not expect, like Burnley, possibly Sheffield United as well. So it depends what you've got there, Kartik, to be honest. Do you really want to sell Kane before that North London derby? Kane's also a potential captaincy option for you next week. If Kane was to go off on Sunday, you're probably going to feel like, and if you can't get Salah, he's kind of a default, go back to him for the armband next week away to Palace, potentially. It's reasonable. What's your plan then if you want Grealish back in 2 weeks? Bigger picture on that, I think. Paul Sweeney says, hi, James. What's your view on Foden starting this week? Thanks, mate. Same as every week, Paul. Yeah, probably. And every week I've been wrong, to be honest. My take has been, like, couldn't sell him before the Fulham fixture. Next week when Jota's playing Fulham and he's playing United, as long as I don't walk into any further problems, it feels like then the right time to make the move. In hindsight, obviously I would have made that move 2-3 weeks ago, but we don't have hindsight, unfortunately. So do I think he starts? Yeah, probably. Am I right? Probably not. And we'll finish with, actually, we'll probably get a few more of these in quick. I'll go for 3 more. Optimus says, hey, James, last week I have to say to you, Mahrez, you have say no, but I got in with KDB and Diaz and big green arrow. This game week, I will ask you about Cavani. What you think? He's a world-class player. Thanks for sticking it to me there, Optimus. Cavani, elite. I'd recommend listening to what I said on Tuesday's Planet FPL podcast about Cavani. Elite. He's still got it. Absolutely brilliant one-touch finisher. Overthinks it a little bit when he's clean through. But one-touch finisher, movement, work rate, even at his age, exceptional. Top player, Edison Cavani. Problem is, he might be getting banned any minute. So you can't buy him, in my opinion. He might be banned next week. So not for me. But Man City the week after as well. But by that point, after the City game and the Christmas run, you probably got a better idea. But then his legs will probably get managed over the Christmas period. So unfortunately, he's in a no-buy territory, really, unless the Premier League or the FA come out and say, look, we're not banning him. But I don't see how they can't ban him after the Instagram post. So I don't think you can buy him. FPL Hitman says, expectation for North London derby. I'm playing 10 with Kane and Son. My expectations are I'm going to be brave this week. And I think, yes, I fancy Tottenham to win 1-0. But I mean what I said at the top of the podcast. Genuinely, if Joe Hart is in goal for Tottenham, get down the bookies, Arsenal will beat us. I mean that it'd be that big if Lloris doesn't play, that I think Arsenal will beat us. Because we can't defend the way we defend against City and Chelsea, because they'll score. The problem with Hart is, and I mean this, you know what he's good at? One-on-one saves. When he comes out and he spreads himself, it's exceptional. Really good. Ball comes into the box, go on Joe, go and catch it or punch it. Good. No problem. Someone wants to shoot from anywhere between 18 and 30 yards and it hits the target, it's going in the net. He's got a major reaction problem. I don't know what it is, because really you would think that if you have to react from closer, that's more difficult. But Paul Robinson went through this same thing and I watched it deteriorate. It was awful. And we've kind of been joking about this with Joe Hart, who was at West Ham for years on Planet FPL. He can't move his feet. And I don't know if it's, when he has more time to think, I don't know if it becomes a conscious thing of him deciding what he needs to do. Or he doesn't want to react too early because he knows the ball's going to deviate or something. But he really struggles. I'm thinking people who can hit from range, Pepe if he plays, Lacazette, Aubameyang, any of them. Honestly, if he's in goal, they'll probably turn us over on Sunday. It'll be that important. FPL Tips says, hi, James. Hope you're well. Thank you, Tips. I'll finish on David Stafford because it looks complicated. Afternoon, James. Looking for a Kilman replacement. Have Robertson, Chilwell, Dallas and Mitchell with Martinez in goal. So I'm guessing you haven't got a goalkeeper. Max budget 4.8 million. Looking at Lamptey, KWP, Taylor. What do you reckon? Anyone else? From then, Cole Walker-Peters would probably get the nod from me, just because when the clean sheet does come round, he's well capable of sort of hitting 8-9 pointers for you without the attacking return. So he'd be the one that gets the nod. Right, I've been rabbiting on for an hour, guys. Thanks very much. I'll get the audio. If you joined in late, I'll get the audio for this turned out really quickly, probably half hour or so, and it'll be up on all the usual iTunes, Spotify, and all that malarkey. I'll be streaming tomorrow for my sort of deadline stream at 9:30 a.m. For those who joined in late, unfortunately, little Harry's got a haircut appointment at 11 a.m. bang on deadline, and I can't get out of it. So obviously, this was booked in when deadline was meant to be Friday, so I will have to shut the stream down at 10:30 a.m. tomorrow. Please do join me from 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. though. As I already said to one of the questions earlier, right at the start of the show, Main Planet FPL podcast next week will be Monday. We'll go earlier. We'll review the eight games from the weekend, because only be reviewing 8 games as well. Probably will get around to more questions on that podcast as well. So keep an eye out for a tweet on Sunday night, depending on what sort of mood I'm in after the North London derby. Have a great weekend, everybody. Hope your arrows are green. Be nice to each other. And for the benefit of those listening on the audio, cue music, please, man. Show.